Welcome to the U3 Media Podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee. I'm Christy Ross, and joining us today is Keri Elliott, founder, owner, and head roaster of Roasted by Mom. Welcome, Keri. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the benefit of the audience, I want to share a couple of things about you. I did see you were a self-proclaimed ninja. We'll talk about that. You're a Golden Bean North America silver medal winner. You've been in the coffee industry since the early 2000s, starting with Starbucks, left, came back, kind of left, came back again, and this time starting your own thing. So on that note, I'm going to jump into the first question about what kept drawing you back to coffee, and really what was the final piece that clicked for you, like sort of this time around, to start your own thing?
Really, the coffee journey was a more of a curiosity kind of a journey. I really liked Starbucks because at the time, Starbucks is popular for frappuccinos. Kids at high school would be walking in the first period with a caramel frappuccino, and there was something about Starbucks that was like, man, if I could work there, that'd be really super cool. So shortly after I graduated high school in the mid-2000s, I got a job at Starbucks. It was a drive-thru Starbucks, and that was quite fun. And I had an amazing crew that I worked with, got in lots of trouble, but...
Wait, you got in lots of trouble.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So there was one time that I was fed I was very new, and I was fed a puck of espresso grounds with whipped cream on top. And my coworkers gave it to me and said, here's a espresso brownie. And I took a bite, and I had grounds all over my mouth. So that was quite fun. And then I was dared to drink a 6-shot.
Wait, is that like an initiation?
Yeah, it was pretty much. Got into trouble, got into crazy stuff. There was one time I drank 6 shots of espresso straight up on my shift, and that was a huge mistake. And just we got into all kinds of crazy fun. And so I worked for Starbucks for a few years, and then when 2008 happened, I realized at that point that I needed to find a better paying job than Starbucks, and I had an opportunity to work with FedEx Express at their hub in LAX. So I left Starbucks, had my journey at FedEx. When I came to Portland, I was 9 months pregnant. At that time, my husband and I were 1 year into our marriage, and we were talking about moving to the Pacific Northwest. And when this full-time position happened in Portland, my husband and I were like, well, I mean, we could move. We don't know when this opportunity is going to pop up. And it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing where everything kind of moved so fast. I drove up here with my mother-in-law. We got settled in to the west side of Portland into our apartment. My husband brought the U-Haul truck with all our stuff. About 2-3 weeks after we settled in, we gave birth to our wonderful, amazing son, Ethan. I had an opportunity to work for Costco. And so I worked for Costco for 2 years. And then as I was working at Costco, that's when I discovered home roasting. So I was learning how to roast coffee at home. That was the pivotal change. That was the aha that led me to where I'm at now.
So very cool. So what, home roasting at Costco, I'm trying to make the connection here. First of all, I love Costco, one of my favorite stores. And I spend way too much money there. So what I'm trying to make the connection between home roasting. Was it just something you discovered while you were working there?
I didn't have a whole lot of interest in a lot of things. And I was like, well, coffee. And she's like, great. Well, why don't you listen to coffee, podcasts about coffee or YouTube videos? Find something.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good
advice. And I was like, well, I don't know. What's what about coffee am I going to know that isn't already out there in the world? So I started my journey, and I listened to one podcast called The Coffee Podcast, and they did an episode of home roasting coffee. I was like, what is this? Like, home roasting. Like, now my curiosity is piqued. I'm super curious.
Right.
So I listened to the podcast, and they were talking about how you could buy green coffee online, how you roast the coffee, what you're looking for, first crack, second crack, the color changes, all the things. And I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. I bought a bag of Bolivian coffee, and I roasted it on the cast iron skillet inside my house, which was a huge mistake. I did not know how much smoke was going to be produced in my kitchen. And so from there, my husband said I was banned from roasting inside the kitchen, so I had to do it outside. And yeah, I remember I roasted it up, and it was probably the most inconsistent colored coffee ever. But when I brewed the coffee, that's when I started seeing like, there was like lightning bolts, stars that were just like, I don't know, something glazed over my eyes, and it was like this huge aha moment of like, that was a great cup of coffee. I roasted that. That is amazing. And that's where the aha moment kind of came in.
Oh my God. So I love that. So wait, so then you started Elliott and Murray. So you started with a different name,
Yeah.
right? So you took parts of two names. Like, what's the story behind that? I know Elliott. Who's Murray?
So Elliott and Murray are both my names. Murray's my maiden name. So a little backstory about that. My family owned a bowling and billiard manufacturing company based out of Los Angeles. That they built that company making pool tables, bowling, like anything like for bowling lanes, bowling alleys, billiard, pool tables, anything you could think of, they built it. They manufactured it in Los Angeles. And my family claim to fame with that was back in 1986. So a movie comes out called The Color of Money with Paul Newman and Tom Cruise. It was directed by Martin Scorsese. And the producers in Burbank came over to my grandfather and said, hey, we need some pool tables for this movie, The Hustler 2. Can you knock it out? And my grandfather was like, you got it. So they manufactured all the pool tables for that movie. So if people go back and they watch The Color of Money, they will see a big Murray logo on the side of the pool tables. And that's my family pool tables.
I love it.
So with that, the business is no longer, that was sold off and everything. Manufacturing in California was just, it was crazy. So my family decided to sell the company. And what I wanted to do to kind of honor that entrepreneur spirit with my dad's side of the family, I wanted to continue on the Murray name into Elliott and Murray Coffee Roasters. So I was, I wanted to kind of continue that into kind of that legacy.
Sure. No, totally makes sense. But I want to hone in on this branding a little bit because, first of all, I love that you did that because I think there's something really nice about sort of honoring, your family in that sense. But you also want to differentiate yourself in coffee, right? Because there's a lot of players in the market. And I feel now with your, I'll call it rebranding, right? Your transition to Roasted by Mom. It was sort of, I feel like, especially from a couple of your previous references, like it was sort of born out of creating and embracing your identity as a mother and a roaster. So what was the process of discovery around this?
Yeah, so that was it, right? Was kind of discovering my identity. And, Elliott and Murray served a purpose at one point, but there was a disconnect in who I was as an individual and what my coffee represented. Here I am a kid that grew up in Southern California during the whole like pop punk emo scene. And I'm also a mother at the same time. And for me, there is so much passion, love, and care that I put into each batch of coffee I roast. People are really surprised that all the coffee that I sell is roasted by me, hand-packed and labeled by me. I'm actually a solopreneur. I run the coffee company by myself. I have no employees. So I'm doing everything.
I love that, by the way. I love
Thank
that.
you. I was coming to the realization that, I'm a mom and I'm a roaster. But then I realized there was a lack of representation of women in the coffee industry.
Oh, very much so. You're spot
Yeah.
on there.
And I was like, I've heard there's a couple of women-owned and operated coffee roasting companies in Portland, like Marigold is one of them, Fetch Coffee Roasters. I'm in the mecca of coffee, the specialty coffee world in Portland, Oregon, right? And there was a point that Elliott and Murray, as far as a branding point, like, people were not connecting with it. And so right before the rebranding, I actually came out with a Mother's Day blend called Roasted by Mom, and I took a portion of the profits and I donated to a local nonprofit that supported, it's called Michelle's Love. They support families, single parents that are going through chemotherapy. So they help with like groceries, paying for rent, cleaning their houses. They have volunteers that do that. Great organization. So for the Mother's Day blend, I did Roasted by Mom. One of the things that I noticed is that a lot of people were very engaged with Roasted by Mom. There was something about that really got people. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, Tim Howard, who owns Blind Coffee Roasters. We actually co-shared the space that we roast out of. And we were kind of going back and forth. And he said, you should really lean into that. Like, there's something about that you should absolutely do something with. But when you have, like, your coffee brand or any brand, no matter what industry you're in, and you have a name that you just, at that moment, you can't really see changing because you're afraid of the change. And that's where the fear factor came in for me. I was like, okay, I'm not quite committed to that change. But I started slowly incorporating that over time into, like, it was first a slogan, like, Elliott and Murray Coffee Roasters, mom-owned coffee roasting company. People absolutely love that. And then over time, I kind of realized that actually it was earlier this year that I realized that, I needed to go full force with completely changing the imagery, the branding, everything to that. And I was smart enough when the Mother's Day blend came out to actually get that trademarked. So I submitted my paperwork like 2 years ago. And I'm glad I did because now we're official, like Roasted by Mom is officially trademarked now. So that was a really smart move on me.
Yeah, that is definitely a good business move. So I saw that you're branding too. First of all, I think it's great. It's a bit of a retro throwback with a modern wink and a sly smile, which is really, really fun and very representative of sort of your brand, which is fun and I guess I'll even call it whimsical. And also here, so I want to talk about that a little bit because you're starring in your own series of like whimsical videos with everything from like wackadoodle root beer espresso to overflowing fine cups of coffee, but your branding and your blend names and like everything else like just screams fun.
Yeah.
So are you having as much fun as it looks like you're having day to day?
Well, I am a Gemini. I always have to have a party. I like to have fun. That is kind of like, that is stuff I am. I love having fun. I like to, and that's kind of like the people pleaser inside me is like, I want to, have people be smiling, be happy, be genuine, be awesome. And yeah, I mean, doing the videos, it's a lot of hard work, especially being a solopreneur and trying to like set up the cameras and doing the editing and all the things. And there's sometimes where I'm trying to come up with a video idea to post on TikTok or Instagram to kind of show people like the day-to-day kind of operations of what goes behind Roasted by Mom Coffee. Sometimes I'm like, I kind of hit a wall, like, not hit a wall, but I run out of ideas. So I try to best market myself as being a solopreneur, woman-owned solopreneur, but also trying to have that balance of highlighting the coffee and doing more like coffee making videos, which I'm trying to pivot more of to show people like different brew recipes and like how to make like different drinks. So it's something that getting in front of the camera, I guess it's natural. And well, okay, no. If my friends were my best friends were here, they'd be like, you know what, you are totally fine in front of the camera. But yeah, just trying to get those ideas, putting that on social media, and trying to get people more engaged into what Roasted by Mom is all about.
Right. Well, and I think too, your videos really show that authenticity that you were referring to, before. And also, you do it with this genuine energy and showing everybody just what it takes to do what you do every day. But you keep it fun, you keep the energy up. So I think your friends are right. You are more than fine in front of the camera, and you exude that wonderful positive energy. So so on the flip side of that, listen, building a business is hard, right? It's hard work at the end of the day. What's one challenge you faced that you found a way to overcome it? Because that's the kicker, right, Keri? It's about how you overcome these challenges. What's one that you can share with us?
Gosh. I think the one thing that really has kept me motivated and kept me going is persistence. I love coffee. I love the craft of roasting coffee. There is something about coffee roasting that I consider an art form. So we're not just roasters, but we are artists. We are craftsmen. You can give a coffee to you can give the same coffee to 5 different coffee roasters, but they have different interpretations of that roast, right? And there's a sort of artistry with that. And for me, because I love the process of being in front of a roaster, watching the roasting process happen, pulling out the dryer, keep smelling the coffee, making sure that it is the right color, right smell, right, all the variables that go into coffee roasting. And so that's where that drive, being persistent into keep doing what you do, being authentic, sticking behind your coffee and roasting coffee with your heart. I think that is the driving factor. Yeah, there's money, there's other things, whatever. But for me, it's the more that I can put coffee in people's hands and the more they can appreciate the craftsmanship that I put into each batch of coffee, to me is probably the most heartfelt, rewarding experience in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. So with working at Starbucks before, is there one thing you learned from working at Starbucks that you've now applied to Roasted by Mom, or maybe definitely did not apply purposefully, to your business today?
Well, okay. There's 2 things that stand out to me. One of the things that I did really appreciate with Starbucks was that they had the coffee journal where baristas can explore different regions of coffees. You're basically doing a coffee cupping, but they don't tell you how to do a coffee cupping. Not a proper one to SCA standards. They're just like, okay, well, take an 8-ounce cup or a short cup, and this is the coffee of the day. Just pour it in, taste it black, and then you write down your notes. That was their form of cupping in the stores. But without that, I would have not explored the regions and got it more of an understanding of like the different flavor profiles in that. So that was kind of like the foundation going. And oddly enough, a lot of people don't know this, but I do like a good dark roast coffee. And for me, so I'm a dark roast girly. As a matter of fact, I'm drinking an iced Whoa Dude espresso blend. And I don't like the way that a lot of dark roast coffee is roasted. I think it's just nasty because it tastes like ash and it's motor oil. So because of Starbucks and me drinking so much dark roast coffee, like I do have a love for dark roast coffee, being a specialty coffee roaster.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I have learned that there's such a wide spectrum, and the flavor profiles are so subjective from the end customer standpoint that you just sort of listen to your customers and hopefully deliver the types of things that they want to drink, right? So here I want to switch over to you being a mom, and you talked about Kevin, your husband, and Ethan, your son. So if they were to describe you as a mom, like what are 3 words that either one of them would use?
Let's see. My son, if he was here, he would probably he would say that I'm the best mommy in the world, and that I'm obsessed with coffee, and that let's see, obsessed with coffee, best mommy in the world, and then gosh, I'm trying to think of the third one. That I can't even think of a third word. I mean,
well, I think that those two are. I think those two are.
Yeah,
perfect.
I think that those two really sum up. Kind of encapsulate how Ethan would describe me, and then, with Kevin, he would probably go on the same lines, like, that I'm loving, caring, and obsessed with coffee.
Yep. That's all right. Those are good. Okay, so where did ninja come from? Like the self-proclaimed ninja?
Oh, yeah. When you mentioned that, I looked at my LinkedIn and I'm like, what is she talking about? And I looked and I'm like, oh, I put it in my skills. When I was doing my LinkedIn profile, ninja came up as something part of my skill set, and I was like, sure, I'll put that on my resume just randomly because I'm a weirdo like that. I'll just put random stuff like that onto a LinkedIn profile. So
I think that's funny. So okay, so you're a talented roaster. I met you at Roasters Guild for the first time. And so of all the things it takes to build a coffee business, is it roasting that you love the best, or is it something else?
Oh gosh, roasting for sure. You have well, for me, actually I should say this. For any moms out there, whether you're in the coffee industry or not, we have our times where we need to just, break away, have our either our me time. So whether it's yoga, meditation, a walk, or listening to the crime story podcast, or whatever the case may be, right? For me, it's really being in front of the roaster and hearing the AMSR kind of vibe from the roaster, where you're hearing the beans turning and you get to smell the Maillard reaction, the caramelization of the coffee, seeing the color changes, being just staring at the roaster, just hearing that noise. For me, that is my calming, centered, that is me at my best, is right.
It's therapeutic.
It absolutely is.
Right?
Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
about the
Yeah,
roaster
no, I
that's
love that.
very therapeutic for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, is there one piece of advice you'd give to someone that wants to enter the coffee industry?
Yes. The one thing is that don't 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 get your head up in the clouds thinking that you're going to be the next Starbucks, because especially in a market like a saturated market, like for example, I'm here in Portland. You're going to be competing with a lot of coffee roasters, and there's a lot of coffee roasters that have skin in the game, that have been doing it for a long time, that have built a customer base. And you can't be coming in swinging and thinking you're the next hot shot, and that you're gonna like change the coffee world. So my best advice would be grounded, be authentic to who you are, really understand what who you are going to serve coffee to, what your customer base is going to be like. Don't go out and buy like anaerobic 72-hour Colombian coffee and you think you're going to sell a crap ton of bags, because it could be sitting there for a while. So I would say that, and just letting people know that you're not going to get rich overnight. It's not a quick rich game, especially in coffee. This for folks that are in coffee and have been sticking around with it, they absolutely are passionate about it, and this is something they love to do. So, yeah, that would be my best advice.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. Yeah, I think you're spot on. So, can you share like a general coffee industry stat that maybe you find interesting?
Ooh, let's see. Well, it was interesting. Swiss water. That kind of blew my mind a little bit. Where I didn't know there was just only one facility in the world that did the Swiss water decaffeination process. I had so I have Cool Mom decaf. It's a sugarcane processed decaf in my shop. And there is a particular reason why I have it. But when people ask me about mountain waters or Swiss water coffee, I have to explain to them that the coffee that is taken to the Swiss water facility in Canada has to be shipped up to a container, up in there in Canada to have the Swiss water process happening, and then that's when it's breaking. Then it goes to its like ports or wherever it needs to go. So really, Swiss water is burning more carbon footprint and more fuel emissions by getting it decaffeinated up in Canada, where other processes like either mountain water or sugarcane processed coffees are usually happening on the farm, where it's less carbon footprint. And for me, honestly, I think sugarcane processed decaf is probably the most amazing decaf there. But for those who don't know what Swiss or sugarcane processed decaf is, it's just basically the coffee is it's a water-based decaffeination process, but it's the natural ethanol lactate decaffeination process with the aid of sugarcane byproducts added to the water bath to help strip off the caffeine, but it's adding a sweetness to the body. And that's the only decaf that we sell at Roasted by Mom Coffee, and all of our decaf lovers absolutely love it.
Awesome. Well, so I am now going to move to our very quick round of the U3 top 3, which are very brief answers, Keri. So the first one is, what is your favorite brewing method?
Ooh. My favorite brewing method, I'm an iced coffee girly, so I love the Japanese flash brew and the Chemex. That is my go-to when I brew coffee at home.
Okay, so you kind of answered the second one for consumption. Coffee drink of choice, black, latte, hot, cold, or do you want?
So cold, black, and usually... and it doesn't matter what roast. It depends on what mood I wake up for and what type of coffee I want. So roast level wise, it doesn't matter. just a Japanese flash brew in the Chemex, iced, black, perfect.
Perfect. And how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Let's see. Typically, I drink about 2 cups of coffee a day. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's awesome. I drink way more than that, and I know I shouldn't, and I got to curtail my coffee drinking. But I want to give you the opportunity to share where someone can learn more about you or about Roasted by Mom. And of course, where someone can watch all those fun, informative videos.
Yeah, so we are definitely on TikTok. So you can check out Roasted by Mom Coffee on TikTok. Where I'm also on Instagram, Roasted by Mom Coffee as well, same username. And if you wanted to check out our website, see the different coffee offerings that we have, roastedbymom.com is the place to go.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Keri.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great story all around. And of course, thanks for helping us unite the world through coffee. And thank you to our followers for joining us at U3 Coffee. We'll see you next time.